What is to feel? What is to be vulnerable? What is to lose someone? What is to grieve? If you were to have asked me these questions back in 2020, I wouldn't be able to give you a proper answer. That was the case until I watched Death Note. The title of this video is in no way, shape, or form hyperbolic. This is not for the algorithm or the attention this may possibly grab. As corny or cringy as it may sound, Death Note truly changed my life. More specifically, it changed my perspective in life in order to be able to answer the 4 questions I started this video with. Well, I could spend an entire hour talking about how much I love Death Note as a story and why I consider it to be one of the greatest series that has ever graced Weekly Shonen Jump. As I was reflecting and thinking about my love for the series, I realized that my true appreciation for Death Note isn't because of its narrative, which is a very weird thing to say, but when you reach the end of this video, you will understand why. If I had to give a short summary on what Death Note is about down to its very core, I would say that the series is about a guy by the name of Light Yagami who, after encountering this notebook with the ability to write names of anyone and being able to kill them, he pursues the goal of becoming a self-proclaimed god in order to get rid of the ugly side of society. The main targets are criminals who end up getting heart attacks throughout the series. And as Light tries to achieve this goal of becoming a god, he ends up being chased by who is considered to be the best detective in the world, L. After these two clash, the series becomes a two-sided cat and mouse chase where whoever gets caught first loses. This brings forth the popular first arc of the series, Light vs. L arc. However, an opinion that I always had from the moment I watched Death Note, as it was the second anime I watched at that point, was that I enjoyed the second half more than the first. Not to say that I didn't enjoy the first half of the story, but I always felt that the claim Death Note fell off after L, or Death Note should have ended after L's death, was extremely short-sighted even back then. Now, I can say that my perspective is more than solidified. After L's demise, Light Yagami, known to the world as Kira, truly was on a victory lap at this point. Now that the main person who was a threat to his goal was gone for good, while at first many people were in fear of Kira and the power he possessed, eventually many turned around and started to praise him with criminal behavior reaching an all-time low. Who would be able to put a stop to Light's madness and ascension to power if even L himself wasn't able to achieve it? Enter Nier and Mello, the two next in line to be considered the next L. These two characters are in my opinion just as important, if not even more than L, considering that they play a huge role in the ending of the story. Everything I said up until this very moment was to give some level of context to my thoughts on the story. Everything I say moving forward is explaining why Death Note truly changed my life. The relationship between Light Yagami and Misa Amane is toxic to say the least. Despite the fact that Light as Kira was given love and appreciation by Misa after killing the man responsible for the deaths of her parents, she never was as passionate to use the Death Note for power as much as Light did. Her obsession and love for Light was what pushed her to continue to work for him to the point of taking the Shinigami ideal twice, shortening her lifespan immensely. But you can tell that Misa was never really in it for the glory. She simply cared for Light. Of course, Light never really cared for Misa and used her as a pawn for his large scheme, even considering killing her off at many points of the story if she wasn't useful. But then we get to the end of the story. Not the manga, since the ending is very cutthroat and fitting for Light Yagami after everything he did to many people throughout the series, but the anime, as we see the last bit of humanity of someone who deluded themselves to be a god. The warehouse confrontation between Light and Nier is filled with unreal levels of tension, as any wrong move that either side did as they were planning was going to make the warehouse their final resting place. But after a humongous power move by Nier after Mikami screw up in trying to kill Takara because of Mello's sacrifice, Light was finally exposed to being Kira. He tries desperately to reason with everyone to no avail, and after trying to use a piece of the Death Note in his watch, he gets shot by Matsura. As he is on the ground, he asks for Misa shamelessly after how badly and without care he treated her throughout the series. As he tries to escape with massive wounds, a watching Ryuk finally decides to write Light's name in the Death Note as he promised at the beginning of the series. But what about Misa? What is she doing as all of this is going on? Before I touch upon that, let me tell you a story that doesn't come from Will, the content creator that you're watching right now, but Will the person, the human being. I remember growing up, I had 3 cousins which were all siblings, 2 sisters and 1 brother. Us 4 used to be practically inseparable, but the oldest cousin out of the 3 was the one who, despite not talking to us much as the other 2, definitely meant a lot to me, as I remember having genuine conversations with her even if they were childish at the time because of how young we were. As time passed, however, we grew apart. I was still living in the Dominican Republic at the time while all 3 of them ended up moving to Europe. Communication went from frequent to non-existent. One day around 2020, I heard very catastrophic news that I never really expected at all. That same cousin who I remember fondly, who was a massive part of my childhood, ended up taking her own life. The catalyst for that was essentially feelings for another guy that got obsessive to the point she decided if she couldn't be in a relationship with him, then life wasn't worth living. I remember my mom telling me the news as she was crying very hard. I was hugging her, and as I did, I noticed my face was blank. I didn't cry or anything, I simply was just standing there with a blank expression in my face as I gave my mom a hug while she poured her heart out. This is the first time I've ever lost someone that important to me, and I didn't feel as overwhelmed as I thought I was going to be. Looking back, there is one particular line in Kendrick Lamar's United in Grief that truly encapsulated my whole dilemma. I grieve different. But back then, I felt guilty. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know that it's okay not to feel as strongly about shocking news at that moment. I simply thought I was a shitty person, wasn't tapped in with his emotions. All this to say, one night, I don't remember if this was when I first watched Death Note or me simply rewatching Death Note after hearing the news, but I watched the final Death Note episode. And I saw Misa Amane on the train in her maid outfit as the credits started to roll. As the ending progresses, Misa Amane goes from the train to on top of a building, right at the very ledge. When I saw the moment, Misa slowly leaning out, implying that she potentially ended her own life after the death of Light Yagami, the tears flowed out of my eyeballs with such ease. I have never cried that hard in my entire life. The loss finally hit me. It hit me like a damn truck going at 100 miles per hour. If you have told me that a story about a guy who lost himself in a book capable of killing others by just writing their names was going to help me grieve the loss of a loved one, I genuinely wouldn't have believed you. But that's exactly what happened. This is why, despite how much I love Death Note, I avoided it for 4 years. I was absolutely scared. I was afraid of reliving that night and the pain being felt once again. But after reading the manga for the first time recently and me sitting down and watching the final episode that hurt me emotionally back then, all I feel now is appreciation. Appreciation for helping me deal with emotions of loss of a family member who I held dear. Appreciation for helping me cope in a way that has shaped how I mourn moving forward. I tell this very personal story for one simple reason. I want this to be a lesson for anyone that's watching this video. Just when you think you get to see someone again, it's the last moment you'll expect that person to no longer be on this planet. You think that a certain loved one is fine, okay, and then you end up later finding out that they are suffering to the point they don't feel like living any longer. My biggest regret, one that I still feel the effects of to this very day, is not communicating with my cousins and letting my oldest cousin know that I care about her. Even if we didn't talk for years at that point, I still can't help but feel that just me letting her know that I still hope to see her again at that time would maybe have been the thing she needed to hear before making a decision so drastic that didn't just end her life but hurt others around her. And so I implore you watching this video right now to send a text or even make a phone call to whoever you hold dear. Ask them how they've been, if they're okay, and tell them that you love them. you never know if that's the one thing they need to hear in order to prevent them losing their lives. And for anyone that feels that the world is better off without them, I'll tell you right now that that is the furthest thing from the truth. Even right now, you may feel as if nobody cares about you. There's always someone who does. And if you feel alone, you don't have to be afraid to ask for help. There is hotlines out there for you to reach, for you to be able to make that step forward and continue living. Life is absolutely precious. You are in this world despite the fact that there was many chances you could have not made it, but you are here now. And the last thing that you want to do is take that opportunity that you have and throw it away when you can just ask for help, endure in the moment, and later on you realize that that was the best decision that you could have ever done. That's all I really have for this video. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are. See you guys next time.